everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And today I made Eric watch a movie. I made Eric watch Weird Al's UHF. And was a little surprised you'd never seen this before.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny because I have friends that are like, how have you never seen UHF? And we just never got around to watching it.
Because you're not a Weird Al fan.
Yeah. And I like these kinds of movies, especially when I was a teenager.
Yeah, yeah. You seem to dig farces and a lot of parodies.
And there's a lot of Wayne's World in this.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of this in Wayne's World. And I love Wayne's World. So.
Yeah, but this was that era of Saturday Night Live, so it could have been pulling from that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though we don't have that movie yet. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
There's certainly a lot of Saturday Night Live in this movie.
I don't know how I didn't see this movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. But now you have.
Now I have.
So, a quick plot synopsis for UHF. It's Weird Al playing a different character. I always thought he should have been called Al.
I like that he wasn't.
Oh, really?
That feels like the obvious thing you do when you give somebody like him a movie.
Yeah.
Is they're just playing themselves, but in a completely different
But the
place.
problem is that is what he's doing. So, like, change the last... Make it like a sitcom. Change the last name, give him his first name. Like, why does he have to be George Newman? Why can't he be Al Newman? Like,
yeah.
Because he is Al. He's not... He's playing his type. Like, I always thought he should... Well, I'm going right into criticism, apparently. But I always thought he should have been called... Because I go through the whole movie having to remind myself what his name is. I'm like, oh, it's Weird Al on screen. But he's George Newman. Okay. Anyway, so he ends up, through a crazy twist of fate, getting a UHF TV station. This is in the late 80s. And he's like a has-been, out-of-work, kid who just sucks at everything.
Well, never was. He's not a has-been.
Not has-been. Well, okay, that's not the way to put that, I guess. But just like
he just kind of jumps from job to job.
Yeah, he just gets fired all the time. He's just kind of.
If you've seen Wayne's World, it's where Wayne is at the beginning of Wayne's World.
Yeah, that's true. And he so he gets fired from a burger place, and for whatever reason, he and his friend who worked there both have to get fired at the same time.
Yep.
You mentioned that. I always thought that was weird.
Yeah.
And his uncle, who's a millionaire, ends up winning this station in a poker game, and his wife thinks that George would be the perfect person to run it, so he ends up becoming the manager of this failing local TV station that nobody watches, and ends up making it a giant success because he gives the janitor his own kid show, and everybody loves it, and is watching it in bars the first time it airs. And a lot of this movie is kind of, the story is kind of just a cookie-cutter framework in order to show a bunch of parodies of every contemporary thing you can think
movies.
of. Mostly commercials, but a lot of TV shows and stuff also. And we kind of use this, like Weird Al does with his songs, in parodying, specific songs, and then also styles. We're doing that with TV shows and commercials and things. So sometimes it's a direct parody, like Rambo at the end, and like Indiana Jones at the beginning. And then sometimes it's more of a style parody. And so, and there's a... music video just right in the middle of it, because it's Weird Al, so you have to have one of those, and that's how his band gets in there. And then at the end of the movie, they end up getting to keep the station after this kind of conflict of this really stereotypical, one-dimensional bad guy who owns the rival station, because they go #1 and he's starting to fail, and they end up having a big telethon, and they end up winning their station at the end.
Yep.
And that's pretty much the movie. So what'd you think of this, Eric?
It's pretty good.
Did you like it?
Video over.
Cool.
I like it. There's some things I would have done differently, or things I thought they should have done differently. The big one is, so we're introduced to him imagining Indiana Jones, and he talks about imagination, and how he has all this imagination, and then he gets control of a TV station. That's nowhere, and he's still having these hallucinations. Why? If he's so imaginative...
Excuses for more parody.
Yeah.
So that they're not all commercials and TV shows.
But if he's so imaginative, why isn't he making shows that are... You know what I mean?
Well, and he is, but what's weird is it seems like Stanley has more imagination than him, and so the one thing that he has going for him is lame and not... It is as good as this other guy that he brings on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been my biggest issue with it.
Yeah, it seems weird, and then...
Because he does have shows, but they're all the generic ones. Like, he just fits himself in there when he doesn't have somebody to run a talk show or to run some other kind of show.
Yeah.
I guess mostly talk shows.
And then, like, he brings on all these people he knows. Like, oh, I know all these characters, I'm going to give them all shows.
And so it's kind of a group of misfits.
I feel like there should have been more, like, I don't know, like him looking down on people and then being like, oh, this is what people want. Is these people that I know. Like, anyone can have... I mean, he invented YouTube. That's what this movie is it's just a channel of nonsense and people doing whatever they want.
Yeah, he's... Well, first of all, I've always this movie more recently has resonated with me more than it did when I was a kid, because I feel like I have the UHF station. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is this guy starting Geekvolution. But it's but yeah, it's weird that it's not more about like his own world and what he wants. Like, what is special about him at the end of the day, really?
Yeah. That, and then the other criticism I have of it is, especially early on, it doesn't know how to juggle its plots. And so, like, there's a point, like, halfway through the movie when he's like, oh man, what time is it? I forgot to go meet my girlfriend. I was like, I forgot he had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And the bad guy kind of is like that too until he becomes important.
The love story bit is real obligatory.
Yeah, I don't know
she's
why
taken out through most of the movie and then comes back at the end.
Yeah, I don't know why she's here.
I mean, I guess the idea is he's supposed to have learned how to be responsible and figured out his life, and he cares about something now, and so now she cares about him again, and so it's kind of, she's just a plot device so he can win something at the end.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of why she's there. Shouldn't this whole thing, back to what we were talking about a second ago, because I just remember this point I wanted to make, shouldn't this have been more, and I would have expected this from Weird Al, shouldn't this have been a little bit more of a commentary and a parody of the stupidness and the mind-numbingness of TV? Like, that's there. The stuff they're making is that, but you hit on something when you said that he should learn, oh, this is what people want. Like, when he's like when you say he should look down on people, he should be like, you know, why would people want this kind of TV? And then he should, like, steer into that skid.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's just already, again, he's Weird Al, he's just already weird, and that's the kind of stuff he would have made in the first place.
Yeah. Or
it should have been, you know, he's this kind of, he seems like this bumbling idiot, but then that gets redundant with Stanley, because he was even more of the bumbling idiot. Yeah. But, like, where he's weird and eccentric and, you know, like, feeds a dog from the punch bowl. You know, that kind of thing. And then, maybe it ought to have been, you know, he's the perfect guy to run the station, because
he's the only crazy enough to, like, wrangle all this all together.
And, yeah, and that the 80s are strange and people like dumb, mindless television. And, like, that's there, but I just feel like that should have been a little bit more at the forefront. I'm actually saying that's a little too subtle, because that should have been the forefront of his character arc, and it could have been less skeleton that way.
That's something I was going to say. Sorry. About something. Oh, Stanley. So Stanley's Cosmo Kramer. And I had no idea.
Just a couple years before Seinfeld.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he's doing a different voice and a different character, but a lot of his like physical tics are very similar, which is interesting because I always thought that was what he did for Kramer. Like, they always talk about, like, how he had to grow into that role, and when you watch first season, he's not all the way there. He's doing a lot of that stuff. He's doing the same surprises. He, like, does this the same. It's really interesting.
I wonder how much of it is him trying to get away from this character when he's in Seinfeld. I mean, not that this was like a big star-making role for him or anything, but he might have been thinking, I don't want it to be exactly like this other character I did, who's also, you know, silly and out there.
Yeah. And Kramer's certainly a different. He's not as dumb, but
right.
I was really surprised because he shows up for a scene. I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, oh, this guy I know from this thing later.
Oh, you didn't expect him to be.
I didn't expect him to come back.
Co-star.
Yeah, no, I feel like I would have heard of that, but yeah. I had no idea.
That's really interesting.
Because that happens.
And nobody talks about Fran Drescher in this movie either, and she gets a really popular sitcom just after this also. But Nanny is like 3 or 4 years after this, if memory serves. I forget when that starts. But yeah, that's who that is.
Right.
I was telling you that earlier.
Yeah. I was like, oh, she's got that really annoying voice that we liked in the 90s.
That's who that is.
But,
so 2 big sitcom stars.
Yeah, and she has a little bit less to do than he does. But,
yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
But
she's just the secretary.
And, like, this is a thing that you see in...
It is kind of doing the Ghostbusters secretary, but more out there.
Yeah. And this is a thing that you see in a lot of comedies when you go backwards. Is like, you'll see someone that you will know later in a small role. Like, if you ever watch Beverly Hills Cop 2, Chris Rock is just, like, the chauffeur in, like, 2 scenes. And so I thought it was going to be a thing like that, where I'm like, oh, this guy that later became famous is in this bit part. And then he's like a main character.
Yeah, Masters of the Universe is weird.
Oh,
Because of all the...
Yeah.
All the 90s TV stars you know from that. Tom Barris from Voyager is the main guy, is the main human guy in that.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know it mostly for Courtney Cox and
Courtney Cox. Yeah, but her boyfriend, that's Tom Paris and Voyager, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Who goes on to produce Chuck. He turned into a producer.
Oh, interesting.
That's Robert Duncan McNeil.
But this is a hard movie to talk about because it's a comedy, like it's funny, it's weird because it's not the movie I thought it was.
Oh, okay.
Because the only thing I'd ever seen from this movie was the Rambo clip. And so when it opens with the Indiana Jones clip, I thought that was the movie. It's just going to be a series of parodies.
Mm-hmm. And it practically bookends like that.
Yeah, you don't really have any more of those. It's really just those two. But at the same time, if I knew that it wasn't a series of parodies, it's exactly the movie I would think it would be.
Yeah.
This is a movie you've seen like 1,000 times, specifically from SNL people. Like, this is a really standard plot kind of a thing for this kind of film. But I really liked it. I like Weird Al's sense of humor. I liked all the fake commercials. Other than the things I had issues with, I didn't. Like you said, the bad guy's cookie cutter, but like I don't care. Like, that's exactly what he should be.
I was just describing him. Yeah. And it's a parody of those kind of movies, so it's formulaic, but it gets away with it because it's doing that. It's just doing that formula, and it's a movie with a decent budget for what it is doing a B movie.
I thought
so. Like it is intentionally being a B movie.
I was impressed with the budget in certain places. Yeah. The opening Indiana Jones scene is really impressive. There's a point where his aunt grabs his cheek and pulls it, and there's like a whole prosthetic that pulls, and I'm like, that's the kind of gag.
That's real Naked Gun.
Yeah. Well, but I don't think Naked Gun would even go that far. Like, I don't think they would.
Oh, yeah,
they
really? Would. Yeah, they would, sure. Okay. No, that's not. I don't know. That's just the prosthetic.
Yeah.
That costs $6.50. That's not that hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks decent, I guess. I would have thought to go to that one for look at the production values. I think more like, oh wow, they built that Rambo chest,
That's true, and it looks good.
Yeah, it looks alright. No, Naked Gun does things like that. My favorite Naked Gun joke was always he gets slapped, or she tries to slap him 2 times, and then a third arm comes out and punches him in the face. Like, yeah, they would do that. They would do the train comes out of nowhere right outside the cave gag.
Yeah.
You laughed quite a few times during this.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Like, I like Weird Al's sense of humor. And this is, I think, the right place where, because I don't like the Naked Gun movies.
Oh, okay.
It's just not my kind of humor. I don't like that.
I haven't seen them in forever. And I have the same thing I do with UHF with the Naked Gun movies, which is, there's those gags out of context that I remember and love, but I don't remember the stories.
There's a lot of, Naked Guns is kind of comedy we don't really do anymore, where it's very literal slapstick, and that's just not really my thing.
But this does a lot of that.
But not in the same way. Because a lot of it ends up being TV show stuff or things like that, and I don't mind it there.
Does it just help because it's a reference? But I mean, there's certainly a lot of puns. Like, you laughed at the puns. Supplies gag.
But I like puns.
Oh, okay. But a lot of what those movies would do would be literal but punny.
Yeah. I don't know. It works for me here in a way it doesn't work for me there.
Okay. Do you like Austin Powers?
I like the first Austin Powers.
Okay.
I think the first Austin Powers is a fantastic setup of the James Bond
it goes
films.
too far, but
the second one's okay.
Yeah.
And that third one's bad, but it's I like it there too. But again, I don't know. It's not as literal there. I don't know.
Some of it. I was just curious because I don't know. I don't think we've done a straight up farce on the show.
No, not in this show.
So one thing I want to ask you is, do you think this movie would be better served if it was one or the other? You know what I mean? Like, if it was telling a story or if it was a series of parodies. Like, because it's not real well integrated. Yeah. But then I like a lot of gags in both of those sides.
That music video really didn't need to be there.
No, certainly not.
Yeah, I don't know. I like.
It's just there so they have a music video to sell out of this movie.
Yeah, which is weird because you don't buy music videos.
No. But That's not what I mean. So the music video can sell the movie.
I see what you mean. On MTV.
On MTV, because this was back when we still put music videos on television.
And somewhere around there, he has Al TV on MTV.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's before or after this.
It's probably right around here.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I forgot about that.
And I like Al TV. Yeah, I don't know. I think it works the way it is for the most part. Those two parodies at the beginning and end are really weird because they're not. The rest of the movie's not like that.
Yeah.
And when he did the Rambo thing, I was like, okay, so what is happening in the real? Oh, he's just walking there, or he's just driving there.
And the problem is, it's not a movie about a guy with a break from reality because the world he lives in is nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the problem with that whole thing. Is like you've already sold me on the internal logic of a world without internal logic, so you don't need to go to dream sequences.
Yeah, no, that was so. I mean, they were kind of funny. I thought the Rambo one went on a little long.
It went on too long, yeah.
But it was, and really, you just need to get to the gag at the end because that's the transition gag, where he just goes like, "Arr!" and then he blows something up, and then he busts in the door and goes,
and I guess it's supposed to be he's imagining himself. He's got delusions of grandeur, and he's imagining this is a much more like the stakes are higher than they are, but that doesn't really play.
Yeah.
That's always been my issue.
And it's weird that a guy who has imagination, his imaginations are just
movies you've seen, and recently.
Yeah. But no, I like the whole supporting cast. The Asian guy I've certainly seen in other things. He's really funny. And I want to say that stupid thing I've either seen him do or I've seen people like intentionally reference.
Yeah, there's a few things here that stock.
Yeah.
Spatula City's a thing that stock.
Is it?
I'd be surprised if you never heard that.
I'd never heard Spatula City.
Yeah, it comes back. People tend to talk about that.
I've seen similar gags.
And Wheel of Fish comes back.
I hadn't heard that either.
Okay.
But I'd seen similar gags to Spatula City where it's just something mundane that we make a big deal out of.
Yeah.
There's a gag in Fairly Odd Parents where it's Escalator Land.
That's pretty cool.
It's a theme park and they're just standing on an escalator and it's like, when do we get to the ride? This is the ride!
Spatula City was always one of my favorite things from this movie, and
it's great.
And I tend to reference it a lot. There's part of why I showed this to Eric was the same reason that I showed him Return of Captain Invincible, so he would get more of my jokes or more of my references. Like Supplies always liked, Stupid I always liked.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple other things.
Yeah. No, and this seems like a movie that if I'd seen this when I was younger, I'd probably watch this a bunch. I'd know it really well and would make jokes from it all the time. It is weird that I haven't seen this movie. It feels like I should have. Given other films I watch, like in my teenage years, and I really liked Weird Al, like I would have thought I would have watched this, but I didn't. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was really fun. I'll probably watch it a few more times before I die.
But I'm glad. I'm kind of surprised by that. I really thought you would say that you were just because I can't always read Eric's. Like he's laughing at things, but that doesn't mean with this kind of material that it's not just a gag out of context. Where you're like, okay, there's those 6 or 7 things that I thought were hysterical, but I was kind of bored. I thought you were gonna say that you were waiting to get to the next parody.
Oh no, and
I'm surprised by that.
I've been taking the parodies out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, at least if you're talking about the bookending one.
No, I just mean like the next commercial.
Oh no.
And the next like TV show thing.
No, and because I wasn't waiting for them every time we cut to one, I was like, oh, it's another one of these.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like waiting for the next one.
But you didn't feel like they interrupted the movie too much.
No, and I didn't feel like they were spaced out too much. Where I was like, when am I gonna do another one of those? Like, I was always just pleasantly surprised. Like, we cut to the one where he's Jerry Springer, and
he gets hit by a chair 100 times.
He gets hit by a chair 100 times.
I didn't remember that. That's pretty great.
That one was great. And he says, whatever he says about, like, next week we'll be doing this. And I forget what it is, but it's, like, something crazy.
Something about Nazi hookers.
Yeah, it's like Nazi hooker, transvestites, aliens, something like that.
Put into rehab programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a joke that feels like it's ahead of its time.
A little. I mean, like the Jerry Springer thing had already kind of started.
No, the Jerry Springer thing, but specifically, like, the string of words that he says, that's a late 90s joke.
And if you go listen to his Bare Naked Ladies parody where he does Jerry Springer, he does a bunch of those.
Okay.
So, like, those strings, that exact kind of thing, it's like he was just waiting for the right song, because he did it in UHF, and then there it was. I think the best joke in the whole movie is the Rubik's Cube joke.
That's a really good one.
Cannot get around the Rubik's Cube joke. It's a blind guy with a Rubik's Cube. Is that it? I also like the homeless guy who wants to make change. He doesn't want change. He wants you to make change. That's pretty great.
Yeah. And that gag with him being excited about the coins, which I would have set up maybe a little bit more that he wants to make change because he's interested in coins.
Yeah. Because all of a sudden, like the first time he just wants to make change, and then later it seems like he is begging.
Mm-hmm. But I would have had him in interest in coins because he gets really excited the second he gets that coin.
So he obviously knows coins.
Yeah, that should have been a thing. I think Al's friend is a little underserved.
Yeah, that's right. And he's kind of the straight man.
And I don't think he's anybody.
He's the most serious person in the whole movie.
Yeah, he's the most like a normal person. But I don't think he's like, I don't know him from anything else. I don't know if he's like Al's friend and he brought him into his movie because that happens sometimes.
Yeah, I haven't looked him up.
I would think you would cast someone like similar to Al's level in that sidekick role. But he's kind of barely.
Unless you really think you need a straight man, it almost feels like there was a slightly different concept at the beginning, and then we cast for that.
Yeah.
And then we made it a little bit different because that's the guy who should like ground him a little bit. Because even his girlfriend is a little stranger than that guy. Like she's not strange, but she has a weird voice, you know. Like
yeah, and her dress is all big and poofy.
They kind of do that on purpose. She's Dot from the Tick cartoon.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just saying she's exactly that character.
Oh, like, I think you meant she's literally.
No, okay. But she's like Dot from the Tick cartoon. Which is after this, but
yeah. Oh, I'm sure Edlin loves this movie.
I would imagine he's at least seen it and like certain gags from it.
Or at least.
Oh, Conan the Librarian is a thing people talk about. Gandhi 2 is a thing people talk about.
And Conan the Librarian is a thing that I think we had this discussion at one point. That's in a Mad Magazine gag, and I don't know when.
You don't know which one comes first?
Yeah, but I think they do.
And you know, Weird Al is a big fan of Mad TV, and got to edit one, Mad TV, excuse me, of Mad Magazine, and got to edit one a couple of years ago.
Well, that's cool. I mean, if anybody cared about Mad Magazine, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, well, I watched him on a talk show, or on a radio show, and a YouTube video, and he talked about that. He was like, yeah, there's not a whole lot of people that buy this magazine anymore, but I grew up with it, and it was a big deal that I got to edit it.
Yeah, a lot of the Simpsons guys are like that too. But they do a gag where it's actually, I can show it to you. You have the book that I had when I was a kid, which is the Mad Magazine Superheroes.
Yeah.
There's a page in there where it's, I think, just like 4 different comics, and one of them is Conan the Librarian. Because Mad Magazine used to do comic book parodies too. Then. Yeah.
Almost certainly. And it's possible he didn't rip that off on purpose.
No, I'm not saying
or that he knows those guys and he asked him if he could use it.
Yeah.
But it's possible that it was like subliminally in his head. I mean, you know, like subconsciously in his head.
But it's
those kind of gags are real easy to accidentally recreate and think you made them up.
Yeah. But they used to do comic book parodies a lot, and so I would guess it would happen in the 70s when Conan was a huge comic. Because everyone forgets that, but like the Conan comics were like up there with the Star Wars comics of keeping Marvel afloat. So yeah, I don't know which one comes first. Either way, it's funny. It's a better moving visual gag than it is a single panel on a comic, because it's just
because that's just the pun.
Yeah.
Or the rhyme.
I love when he cuts that guy in half. He's like, "Oh, this is a little late. I'm sorry." He just cuts him in half. Do you know Dewey Decimal?
One thing I might have expected from this, if I saw it later and knew more Weird Al before I saw it because I saw this when I was a kid. Because a lot of like comedians or people with music careers or whatever who would make their own movie would get kind of self-indulgent and make a lot of references to their own careers.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of that.
There's not a lot of that, and you might expand, and you honestly could have gotten away with more of it here because Weird Al has so many songs about TV.
Yeah.
Like this is him doing one of the 3 big things in the Weird Al trifecta, which is TV, food, and there's another one that's I guess the 4th one would be like fake love songs because that's a thing.
Yeah.
But then Why can't I think of the? There's another thing that I always put in that where that he does a million songs about, and I don't know why I'm not thinking of it right now.
I can't think of.
But anyway,
TV and food would be the two big ones.
TV and food are two of the big ones. Yeah, I don't know what I'm thinking. Anyway, I thought about this the other day, and I should have written it down because I can't think of what that third thing was. But anyway, but there was one I noticed this time that I hadn't before, which is Burger World. That's the restaurant he gets thrown out of, and that's the name of the restaurant that the big guy at the beginning of the Fat video says he's like I haven't seen you around Burger World lately. You ain't nothing. You ain't fat. And then later on he's like ding dong, yo ding dong. And then later on in the movie that guy's in the movie.
Yeah.
And he's the camera operator.
Yeah.
And he's always eating something.
And he
which
gets
I think
is show too. He gets the prank show.
He gets the prank show, and he's eating something in that. He's this big heavy set guy, and he keeps eating food. And I feel like that's an intentional callback to Fat, maybe.
Probably. Well, I mean, Burger World certainly is.
Because it looks like they have that guy playing the same character he played in Fat.
Yeah, I like that. I'd like to see Weird Al get to do another movie.
I would too, because I think he could. I mean, as much fun as this is, I mean, he could certainly surpass it.
Well, and I mean that could be a movie where it's the Weird Al character and like, oh, I'm not as popular as I used to be. Music's not as good now.
Mm-hmm.
It's much harder to do parodies. Like that's a movie. And you could still be silly and do all this stuff.
That's true, yeah. And of course, a lot of years since then, so there's more contemporary things
and I always
make fun of.
I always think it's interesting
but it's surprising how much of this holds up.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Because a lot of it is just and some of it is we do so many remakes and stuff now that like a lot of the movie staples have stuck around and been the movie staples. Now there are some things that that I wouldn't think a 15-year-old kid would get like We Don't Need No Stinking Badgers, which is not a joke that ever played to me, but like. Okay, some people are not going to get that joke.
Yeah. Well, and
Gandhi too. Some people are not going to get that joke.
No one's going to get that joke.
So there's stuff, but there's one place with the
Rambo's popular.
That's true, but it's at least had another movie in the last 10 years. But I don't think anybody watched.
I watched it.
But there was I don't know how big that movie was. But it wasn't like the resurgence of Rocky.
Yeah, no.
But like that gun control gag, you look at me, you're like, was this made yesterday? Like some of it holds up more than I would expect.
Well, it's interesting because commercials haven't actually changed that much. So like all the commercial gags hold up. Like
that's true.
Yeah, like that. I'm Crazy Al's car, and like I got red cars, blue cars. Like we still make commercials like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like commercials haven't changed that much. Especially local commercials. Local commercials definitely have not changed very much at all. And I think I've always thought it was interesting that Weird Al has two distinct looks.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because I didn't know him as this Al when I first discovered him. I knew him as the long-haired glasses guy.
And he used to be defined by his mustache.
Mm-hmm.
And he got rid of the mustache when he got rid of the glasses in the early to mid 90s. Mm-hmm. And that's his 90s look, and he's kept that look all the way up to now.
Yeah, and that's primarily how I know him when I'm discovering him.
I think of that as the Running with Scissors look. I think it's not till Running with Scissors that he does.
I think you're right because he's on the cover on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and the cover's kind of making a big deal out of he's got a new look now.
Well, he's got two looks. He needs a second movie for this look.
I'm with you. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I really like this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'll watch it again a couple more times before I die.
I think he should make 60% chance of rain. I love that joke. That's a thing he a video he plays at concerts,
mm-hmm.
and he it's like a pretend disaster film.
Yeah,
and he's like is it gonna rain? We just don't know. Ah! And like I think you should make that movie. I don't know what you would do with an hour and a half of 60% chance of rain, but anyway. But he's made so many of he's made a bunch of these kinds of like commercial and trailer parodies.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's another movie.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, I don't mean it should be UHF 2, obviously.
Oh no,
but
no, it'd be something different.
Another movie.
Another Weird Al movie.
Would you want him to play himself, or would you want him to do yet another character?
If he was playing himself and it was the thing that I pitched, where it's like, oh, it's getting harder, I'm older, and like then he would be Weird Al. That doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, but I think
depending on what the premise is. It'd be weird if it was that premise and he was like Steve McGregor. Like
I think now's the time to do a parody of biopics.
Oh yeah,
I think that'd be
great.
And he has a trailer. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but he plays this at concerts too. He has a fake Weird Al biopic trailer.
Oh no, I've never seen that.
Where they pretend like they make it the standard typical like rock star movie, and they pretend like he had a big history with drugs, and he didn't, and that he was like sleeping around with everyone.
He was partying too hard at the leper colonies.
And it's hysterical.
I'll have to look at that. That sounds really funny.
So anyway, you didn't flip your sign.
Oh, I forgot about the sign.
Yeah,
I'm definitely feeling it.
Cool.
We got a pretty good ratio on those.
Yeah,
the flips.
I think for the most part, I think I flipped red maybe one time.
1.5.
Oh yeah, because I had that one.
And they're
one
both.
I was real undecided.
And they're both Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs movies. I love Jeffrey Combs, but his B movies I cannot decide. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks so much for watching. We sure appreciate it. We'll see you again next time when Eric makes me watch something else. In the meantime, I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Eric.
Thanks again.